Welcome to another episode. So this question, those who I have interacted, have been asking. I have ideas in mind. How do I go about making my own startup? As you may be aware, that India is now on the top three in the list of the unicorn startups. A startup is said to be a unicorn when it has a valuation of 1 billion. So next to USA, China, India stands third. So gone are the days when folks take up always jobs in the private sector. They are not inclined to take any of the entrepreneurship or business on their own. But these days, even in the best of the institutions like IITs and engineering colleges, people are now moving towards doing business or starting a startup as soon as or as early as in their 25s or 30s. But the point is, they might have some idea, but how to start a business? Because this is not something which is taught in engineering. It is not something even taught as a subject even in MBA. There's no paper which goes in deep into the startup culture, how it happens. Because the point here is, it depends on the country as well, the culture as well. So it always varies. Having said that, but there are five key points which I thought every entrepreneur or whoever wish to do a startup need to have this in mind. This itself could be, each of them could be a big topic on its own, but I have tried to consolidate. So what are those five key takeaways? That's what I'm going to discuss. The first one is, yes, the design thinking principle. This is something like when you do any kind of a project, you need to do this design thinking approach. First is empathize, meaning you have a wonderful product, but is market is ready to absorb or not? You might feel that product is great. You need to step on the customer's shoes and think about whether the customer will purchase the product, and if at all, if he's okay to purchase the product, at what price he will be ready to pay for it. So these are the things you need to empathize initially, whether it is worthwhile to have the product first place in the market. So if you feel, so that's where empathize is important. The first one is whether there is a market for the product, and if there is a market, what is the price and the customer might be willing to pay for it. So that's where you need to empathize. And then define the problem statement. And ideate is something like brainstorm as how do you going to build the product, how do you going to market it, whether it is online or whether it is going to deploy marketing folks. All this needs to be, you need to have plan for that. Then comes the prototyping. How do you build the product? What is the technology to use? Whether there is an alternative technology, whether there's a better product in the market, all these needs to be found out and then come out with a prototype. So let me give an example. Few years back, one of my friends said that he wanted a certain product for the Indian market because something like for taxis, he want to know the owner of the, he has some 10 taxis. So he wants to know at which place the specific taxi is located. Yes, the requirement was brilliant, but the point is there is already a product, and it was a Chinese product. It was just available for rupees about 1,000 rupees. So in that case, why do you want to reinvent a wheel? Meaning, like, why do you want to invest your time and effort when it is already available in so cheap price in the market? So if it is already there, that's where you need to have your due diligence, find out whether such a product is already available, and if it is already available, there is no point in making the product unless on one condition it is so cheap. For example, the same product like the identifying a vehicle at which place it is or which location it is, if it is already it is costing something like 1 lakh and above, and if I can build it for maybe 10,000 or 15,000 or even 50,000, yes, it is worth the effort. But if it is already so cheap, no point in investing huge money. So prototyping is very important concept, and for that you need to be sure that right pricing is done. Then comes, yes, test the market, don't mass produce, test the market with a prototype and see it is whether it is worthwhile. So first is, yes, design thinking is very important concept. which has been in the last few years, a lot of discussion about design thinking, which is similar to any project. Only thing is, it needs to be everything needs to be time based. It needs to be quick, and even if it fails, it is fine. It need to happen at a faster pace instead of taking years and years of time, because you'll be investing time and money. So that's where, if at all, if it is success, it could be you can I mean create a product and deliver it. If there is a failure, yes, you need to fail fast. So design thinking concept is applied. So first thing is, you need to empathize, design, ideate, prototype, test. That is one part of it. So any product, before you venture out, have this in mind. Number two is bootstrap and perseverance. You go to any of the small business. The biggest challenge they face is non-availability of vitamin M. What do you say? What do I mean by vitamin M? It's of course money. Small business is hard pressed for money, so they will always say, "I have fantastic idea, but yes, I don't have money. Government is not looking after business, small business. They are not giving financing, even though I have an excellent concept." All this is fine, but the challenge is, will you invest your money, even if it is 100, if you are not sure about the product? Same is the case for the government. So best is, of course, you need to bootstrap. Bootstrap is a process of building business from scratch without attracting investment. And let me tell you one thing: once you are successful with a product, then you'll find many takers, many takers in the sense, many investors who is willing to invest. The ideal example I can give you is Zoho in Indian market. Zoho, I mean, was totally funded by bootstrapping method. In still now, they don't have attract any external funding. They don't, in fact, have gone into venture capital funding of investor. The opposite is Ola in India. Yes, they get funding. There are many things. Many of the small business or startup which has gone into the venture capital funding, that is attracting investment. Both have pros and cons, but the challenge is, if you are an entrepreneur focusing on getting only the investment, you will not focus on the other things. So you need to have a balance. Ensure that you devote sufficient time for building the product, and at the same time, you need to have sufficient amount of money to build up the business. It need not be a huge business. Huge business in the sense, don't look out for great offices, great security in place. A typical corporate setup will not work for a startup because of the investment it need to have. So best is bootstrap. The next one is perseverance. This point is very critical. Entrepreneurship is a marathon, not a 100-meter sprint. When take 1 year to be successful, or to reach a point of break even meaning whatever for that particular year, whatever you have invested, you are getting the returns over and above that investment. So that is the break even. Break even could happen in first year itself, or it could take 3 years, or it could take even 5 years as well, or more. So ideally, yes, you need to look out for 2 to 5 years is the general time frame required for the return on investment to happen. So do you have a capability or such a perseverance to hold on that time? Whatever is your business. So that is the time frame you need to give. You can't expect success from day one or the first year itself. So perseverance is very important as well. As well. The next one I would ideally say, in the last decade, online presence kind of product instead of brick and mortar, instead of having great offices with huge investment in the infrastructure. If you are doing something online, the world is a market. In case of the physical office, it could be catered to only local market. So something like, if your idea is something like online presence, yes, it is always good. It doesn't require that much investment also. The last 1 decade, as far as India is concerned, the 95% of unicorning meaning, as I said, who has a valuation of 1 billion and above, was in this sector, that is online services or product. And this is just an example. So many of them in 2022 and 2021, and something like, what is not there is you don't find Swiggy, Zomato. or Flipkart, those were started little earlier itself. The Olas as well started earlier. Is only for 2021. So all of them made money through online. So online is always better compared to traditional brick and mortar kind of a business, which will cater only a small market segment. So ensure that you have a kind of a online presence, or a product itself is based on online, or at least ensure that marketing is through online. If your product is kind of a physical product, ensure that you make a kind of investment that you have presence in online. It will do marketing mostly on its own. So even for that matter, training, I would say training, instead of if you're a highly kind of a qualified coach, instead of looking for a college, and instead of going and tutoring, you could do it on online. There are platforms you can utilize to do your online training. Then the world is your market. So online presence is always kind of, at this time, it's always better than physical presence, which is a brick and mortar, which is generally called the real estate, involving offices, physical presence. Instead of that, this could be better. See the online presence. So that's point number three. And point number four is you need to understand, this is very essential because most of the people with technical background ignore the statutory financial requirement. Like, for example, whether you want to start a public limited, private limited, partnership, proprietary, all this are there. And all this, um, I mean, forming an entity itself is going to cost time because there are rules and regulations. So ensure that you don't invest too much. You can start with maybe a proprietor, or you can do it even as a freelancer. You don't need to even, for example, I'll give you an example. Like, suppose bank savings account, you get an interest of 4%. Whereas if you are a business account, which is called as a current account, you need to have 25,000 as a base amount, whereas in savings account, it's just 1,000 rupees which is needed, and it attracts the interest. Whereas all this public private limited partnership requires a current account, and in the current account, generally 25,000, you need to have an amount which you cannot touch. That's a base amount required by the banks. On top of it, there is no interest for the current account. So all this due diligence you need to make. You can go as a freelancer. In that case, you can use your savings account itself. And again, understanding of the accounting method. There are so many things like the accounting methods have an understanding of the accounting methods. Like recently, of course, 5 years back, in case of freelancer, you can always have accounting as presumptive. I'll not go into that, but those are the things you need to have some idea. And the registration requirement, all this have some time in understanding that as well. And finally, not the least, yes, team building and delegation. Again, in some of the, I've seen the recent coaches in entrepreneurship, they will always say you need to ensure that you don't do a all job by yourself. Then you are not running the business. Business is running you. All this I don't understand. It's all okay for a corporate setup. You can delegate, but when you are small, when you don't have money, money is not enough. You have no other option to run the business on your own. Initially, maybe with few minimal staff, maybe 2 to 5 years time, and then plan to scale up as you internally generate revenue. Then that's a kind of an organic growth. As you fund, as you get the revenue, use that fund to organically grow, build your team when it grows. Instead, at the start itself, you are going to excessively recruit people and delegate everything. Then you will very soon go out of money. You will not have any money to build a product, to market it. So team building is important, but at the startup stage, don't focus too much on team building and delegation. So as you it generates an internal revenue, and if when that is profitable, yes, you need to ensure that there is a team building exercise is done. Otherwise, if you have a sufficient savings on which you can fall back, you can use that to build your team, assuming that you have done your due diligence that there is going to be a return for your investment. Then you can invest that on the team building. So have this 5 points in the mind. Basically, the first one is, of course, applying design thinking towards the product building. That is one. Bootstrap, perseverance, 2 to 5 years time frame. then online presence instead of brick and mortar, instead of physical presence, online sales or online shop rather than physical shop. So that is third. Number four is basic understanding of financial statutory financial requirement, different forms of companies, accounting methods, registration requirement, and finally the team building. Focus this when you want to do something on your own. I hope you found this helpful. Do subscribe to my channel. Thank you and cheers.